Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cruise Corner podcast. It's me, your co-host, Jack Carter. Well, we have another bumper episode for you today. Later on, Ruth Venn, Associate Vice President of Sales and Distribution at P&O Cruises. She's going to be joining us for a special interview where we look back at 20 years for her time at Carnival. So stay tuned for that. But first, I'm delighted to say that we have another special guest joining us today. Now, we know that there's a real appetite among travelers right now for what you might call non-traditional cruises. So those experiences that take you to unexpected places on ships that are vastly different from the usual 3, 4, 5,000 guest vessels. Now, our first guest is fresh off back-to-back cruises with Windstar and Havila Voyages, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about her time on board. So, making her Cruise Corner podcast debut, World of Cruising's digital content producer, Amaris Proctor. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Jack. I'm so excited to be here. I've really enjoyed listening to the podcast so far, so it's so exciting to join in.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. So let's start with the Windstar Cruises trip that you recently did. Where did you sail to, and what were your first impressions of sailing on a smaller ship?
Yeah, it was a really special itinerary for a couple of reasons, actually. For one, so I'll first tell you where it went. So it started off in Barcelona, and then it went to Nice, Genoa, and it then went to Livorno and finished up in Rome. But one of the things that made it really special, it had 3 overnights, which is really quite immersive for a week-long cruise.
That's really unique for cruising.
Yeah, for sure. Like maybe you get 1 or 2, but 3, that really gives it that city break feel. And then it was also part of Windstar's Winter in the Mediterranean collection, which is such a lovely way to experience it. I think we've all been to the Mediterranean in the height of summer, and we all know it can be very crowded. It can be very hot, unfortunately.
Punishing summer temperatures, queuing for hours for a gallery or trying to get a restaurant table. It's not pleasant.
Absolutely, especially somewhere like the south of France. So being able to see it from that kind of other perspective, that familiar destination, but kind of in a new light, was such an exciting experience. I loved, like, for example, going to the Chagall Museum or the Uffizi and being able to actually see the art and take it in at my own leisure without constantly feeling jostled or rushed. That was so special. So I really enjoyed that. And also, so in terms of my first impressions of the ship, so I actually joined in Nice, and from the plane, when I was looking out the window as we were landing, I saw Star Legend sailing into port, and that was incredible. Getting that sense of scale was so exciting.
Puts it all into context.
Absolutely. And it's such an elegant ship, so getting that bird's eye view was just so lovely. And then kind of going and meeting the ship and seeing that it is genuinely this boutique vessel, and it is genuinely in the port of Nice. So a lot of, ships going to the French Riviera will stop a little bit outside of Nice, and, it's not massively far, but it still does take a little bit away from your time in the city. So being right in the center of town was so exciting and really kind of gave me that introduction to what small ships are able to do in terms of giving you that access. And then going on board, you immediately, like, I used to work with, writing about boutique hotels, and there was a real kinship between the experience you get on this small ship immediately from the way you're greeted by the crew and the way that you can really form those relationships. People know your name, you know their names, you're having those conversations. So that was really lovely. And one thing I really noticed was it's a small ship, but it feels so spacious. Like, I went into the suite, and it is an all-suite ship, and it is a little bit gobsmacking how much space you actually get. And then, the kind of relationships that you will kind of carry on throughout your time on board. I noticed, for example, you all get room attendants, which is such a nice touch as well. And they do really thoughtful things like put a bookmark in your book. Like, I thought that kind of personalized touch was such a lovely dimension.
Yeah. What was the profile of the guests on board? I mean, did you have a chance to speak to any of them?
Yes, it's such a relaxed atmosphere. So you really get that sense of sociability. There was, couples couples, solo guests, multi-gen groups. So kind of across the spectrum in that sense. Windstar is this company that has had this really strong profile in the North American market for a long time, about 40 years. But it's really gratifying to see that their investment in the global market has started to pay off in a big way, because there was kind of a greater sense of presence from UK guests, from the German market as well. So that was really lovely. And yeah, like having conversations with them and getting a sense of the kind of other cruises they like to go on. So I really noticed this relationship between river cruising and Windstar, because
okay, that's interesting.
yeah, because there is like, once you kind of think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like on river cruises, you don't really get the massive Broadway shows, and it's quite similar on Windstar. It's a lot more low key and personable, and you might get like an art historian, for example, instead. And then also it's about being at the heart of cities, like as we mentioned, small ships kind of give you the ability to do that. And it's also a bit more about the relationships you can build, because it's a more intimate vessel.
And would you say that sort of it's all about destination immersion more than sort of spending time on board and any of those kind of features?
Yes, I would say destination immersion is massively important on these itineraries. You get these very long days in port, so you can also kind of see the cities at your leisure. So, you can wake up, have a coffee, and you don't feel like you have to rush out immediately. But then I would say another factor is gastronomy. It's such a massive part of making you feel immersed in a destination as well. Because
so I bet you got to try some really nice.
Yes,
I'm thinking fresh pastas. Fresh pasta, good.
Ridiculously good fresh pasta. And they're the official partner of the James Beard Foundation. So everything is just curated in this way that you really know that like chefs had a massive hand in kind of thinking about every element of the dining experience. So yeah, that was just a real joy to experience.
So not only that, but you also got to experience what I'm sure for many of our listeners is a bucket list holiday. It was a rail and sail adventure to the Arctic Circle. What were your expectations before the trip, and was there anything that surprised you about it?
Yeah, so it probably isn't surprising. As a cruise journalist, I love doing loads of research before I go anywhere. I watch all the TikToks, I read all the blogs, and obviously the magazine. So I went in with expectations, but it doesn't really prepare you for the emotional reaction you have when you're there. That sounds a little bit earnest, but it's quite true. So, we flew, and also it was so incredible because, you only are 2 hours away from London. You fly into Oslo, and you begin your journey. So it's close to home, but it feels like you're in this completely different world. So traveling there and getting the train from Oslo to Bergen, I had my book ready. I love train travel, but I didn't realize how exhilarating it was going to be. Like I didn't even read one single page of that book. Like I was looking out the window the entire time, like just the sense of transformation of landscapes, the sense of winterscapes that you just don't get in the UK, these untouched vistas of just like endless snow, and then these just like blindingly white mountains that you encounter when you come out of the tunnel. It's just incredible.
You sailed with Grey Rail Journeys, correct?
Yes, yeah.
What was the kind of the vibe like on board? Are we thinking this is very high-end luxury? Is this sort of a bit more refined?
It was refined, but I would say completely unpretentious, which I found really approachable as well. So in terms of who was traveling, it was people from massively diverse walks of life, and also lots of people from the UK, but also there were some fellow travelers who were traveling from South Africa and California. So they traveled like 25 hours to be there. So it was kind of people who just really wanted to be in the moment and enjoy the experience.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily like, nothing about it felt exclusive in the sense of excluding people. It all felt very welcoming, and like everyone could be part of the experience.
And I get that. I guess that your enthusiasm is just sort of bouncing off on it at that point.
Yeah, everyone's having that conversation, and it's like, over dinner you're talking about, what photos you took or what footage they got. And when we got on the ship, because we were all dining together still, there was really that kind of sense of continuation.
What was it like hopping from the train element to the cruise? I mean, how seamless was that for an agent who might be thinking of pitching that to their clients? I mean, what's in terms of sort of maybe the functional information, what should they know?
I mean, I have to give a massive shout out to our tour manager, Ian, because he really was with us every step of the journey. I was talking to some fellow travelers who talked about, some cases where the tour manager only stays with you for a leg of it and you're kind of on your own when you're on the ship. But that really wasn't the case. He was, there with us at every meal. He was kind of making sure that everyone felt like they had like a good sense of what was happening, the itinerary, they had all the information they needed. So it really kind of is that seamless experience in that sense.
Fantastic. Well, Amaris, thank you so much for reliving all of that for us. If you're listening and you want to relive it as well, then make sure you pick up World of Cruising's April issue. You can read all about Amaris's travels in there. Okay, so now we're going to move on to today's headline interview, and I'm incredibly thrilled to introduce Ruth Venn, Associate Vice President of Sales and Distribution at P&O Cruises. Ruth began her travel career in 2004 when she joined Ocean World Travel as a sales consultant. Then in 2005, she began her odyssey with Carnival UK. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the career highlights and lessons she learned over the last 2 decades, before moving on to finding a little bit more about how P&O Cruises is working with travel agents in 2026 and beyond. Ruth, it's so lovely to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. So as mentioned, you spent nearly, or maybe over 20 years now at Carnival UK brands. I mean, loyalty like that can be hard to come by in any industry, let alone the cruise or the travel industry. I mean, what's your secret to staying at a company for over 2 decades?
Yeah, it was October last year that we celebrated 20 years. And it's a bit of a cliche maybe, but it's the people. And I just think we work in an incredible industry, whether that's our partners that we work with through our travel agents, my team, colleagues, fantastic crew that we have at sea. But everyone's got that kind of connection, that one purpose of continuing to sell cruise, continuing to offer amazing holiday experiences, and working towards that same goal. So it's unusual, but I think there are quite a few people in travel and in cruise who have been there for that kind of tenure, and some people that leave and then come back because it is quite infectious. So I think that's important to me anyway.
Can you remember your first day?
I can, yes. Yeah, as part of my interview process, I had to do a spelling test, and spelling's not my strongest point, actually. So I was quite nervous. I remember trying to spell Mediterranean and Caribbean. So I was delighted when I got the job. And then my first day thinking, like, please make sure you can spell all of these countries and places. But yeah, I do remember my first day. And I was lucky. I started in the contact centre. So I did a 3-week quite intense training programme, which I really enjoyed. And it gave me a real foundation in terms of knowledge and experience and understanding of the business and the company.
I mean, you have some amazing brands at Carnival, so there's got to be lots of really great creative people and creative departments. I mean, that must give you and everyone in your team the energy to kind of just keep going and keep reaching new targets all the time.
Yeah, it does. And it's variation as well. So no 2 days are the same. And I think, we genuinely have the same purpose, as I said, but we do get lots of experience, get to meet new people, we get to work with different departments on different projects. So there's lots of variation. When I first started out at Carnival in the contact centre, I looked after or took calls for Princess, Cunard and P&O Cruises. And then when I moved to sales, I was about 4 months in when I moved over to the sales department. And that's when we had the Complete Cruise Solution brand, which I know lots of agents and lots of your readers, I'm sure, will be familiar with. And that really gave me a broad perspective of the different brands and different USPs and different customers we were going after. So I think that, again, that just kind of gave me a real strong foundation in terms of my career path onwards.
I'm not going to ask you to pick your favourite.
P&O Cruises, of course. Okay. You can ask me.
But talk to me a bit about your role today then, and kind of what does like a typical day look like, and sort of what are your sort of midterm, long-term goals with this particular role?
Yeah, typical day. Is there a typical day in travel?
I don't think there is.
No, every day is different. I guess in terms of goals, I look after the B2B sales team, so we're working with our travel agent partners all of the time, and our goal is always to be the easiest and the most rewarding cruise brand to work with. Britain's favourite cruise line. We know that we're market leader, so we've got a job to do in terms of helping our agents to understand cruise and to do category reappraisal all of the time. And you'll see that through our brand advertising, for our marketing, and obviously we work really, really closely with our marketing team in making sure that what's going out from a consumer point of view can also resonate with our trade partners and travel agents, and make sure they've got the tools and the understanding as to who we are as a brand and why they should be selling us and promoting us. So yeah, certainly always looking to grow cruise as a sector, and certainly P&O Cruises within that. And then shorter term, I guess sometimes I'm guilty of still wanting to do some of the day-to-day things. My team will probably have to tell me off sometimes and say, no, Ruth, you don't do that anymore. But speaking to our partners, so we're all about having the right relationships in place, whether that's through our regional team and face-to-face visits, attending cruise shows, etc. And January's certainly been a busy period for doing that, or more strategic conversations, making sure we're sitting with senior people in our partnerships and with our travel agents to agree on our mutual goals and our longer term strategies.
We mentioned January there. I mean, how was the start of the year for you guys? I mean, there's been sort of mixed stories around the industry of some record breaking days, some moments where sort of targets haven't quite been hit as positively as people had hoped. How's it been for P&O and the wider Carnival team?
Yeah, I think mix is probably a good word to look at it. It's certainly been a really busy January period. We've had to be really agile. We've had some really strong offers out with our consumers that have resonated well. So we introduced a £50 per person low deposit, and again, agent partners really got behind that, and that's worked well, and that's generated more success. So I think that's been good. We've had to be agile in terms of our offering and making sure that we're putting the best offer forward. So talking to our customers around things like extra onboard spending money, which we know is really important to them and gives them choice and flexibility. And then going into the wave period, as we call it, and into January and February, we just launched our all-inclusive proposition. So offering our consumers more opportunity to personalise their holiday, more value, more choice in terms of taking that all-inclusive. And I think that's been really important and something that consumers and agents have been asking for, because guests want to know what's included. They want the Wi-Fi, they want the drink. So being able to now add that on at point of sale has been positive, and a message that we've been using throughout January as well. That's
interesting, because a lot of sometimes the criticism of all-inclusive products is there isn't much room for personalization. Kind of what you pay for is kind of what you get, which is great in some instances, but I think travelers today like to tailor what their inclusions is, especially from a budgeting reasons. I mean, is that something you've noticed in terms of needing to be a bit more agile in terms of how people can shape the product in the way that works best for them?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we see trends in that in terms of duration, itinerary. So people going to Norway, it tends to be a more expensive destination, so they appreciate that value even more. Likewise, if you go to the Caribbean, Wi-Fi is probably even more important. So there's definitely trends around the destination that you go to, as well as the duration of the holiday, which has been important. So, and that was exactly why we designed the all-inclusive package the way we did, having an option for a deluxe or a classic package, or you don't have to take either, and you can absolutely pay as you go. So yeah, we're seeing that flexibility, and agents again are doing a really good job in talking to their customers about what works for them and bringing that to life, rather than saying you must go all inclusive or you must go full board. So that's been good.
Well, we'll come on in a little bit to your engagement with the agent community, but first I wanted to ask you something about I was in the audience last October of the Advantage Latitude Conference, and you were on a panel of other cruise industry leaders, and you said something really interesting about a website can sell a cabin, but a travel agent can sell an experience. What did you mean by that? Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes, we see this all the time with our travel agents, and I've been fortunate enough last year on National Travel Agent Day, I did some visits, as did my boss, Stuart Allison, the Chief Commercial Officer. And when you go into agencies and into stores, you can just instantly feel that passion, feel that knowledge, and they really take the time to understand their customer, who's sat in front of them. And they're, selling a host of brands, whether that's cruise, holiday brands, touring brands, etc. And they can really understand what's going to work for their customer. So I think they use that knowledge, experience that they've got to make sure what they're selling is exactly what their customer's going to love and enjoy. And luckily for us, that's often a P&O Cruises holiday. But they will, know the intricate details as to, okay, what do you enjoy doing when you're on holiday? Whether that's, I like to go on relaxing spa breaks, or I want a city break, and then matching the cruise to them. So I think that's been something that we constantly look at our agent partners as a real success for.
Sure. I mean, you just relaunched your China at Sea program. I mean, that's something I know you guys are really, really proud of. Can you talk to the people who, any agents who are listening or watching right now, what is Shine at Sea? Why is it something that they should also get excited about, and how can they get involved?
Yeah, I guess firstly, Shine Rewards Club is our reward and loyalty program, and it is exactly that. It's about rewarding and loyalty. So not only do you earn points for making bookings for P&O Cruises, you earn points when you engage with us, whether that's through taking a webinar. We do Facebook Live once a month, so opportunity throughout the month to engage, learn, and build up your P&O Cruises knowledge through our Shine Rewards platform. So this will be our third year of Shine at Sea. And when we started to think about what we wanted to offer in terms of educational and sort of familiarisation trips, we wanted to look at something quite different, and it to be very much a mix of the holiday, how an agent might want to take it, as well as really in-depth learning and something that you can't get unless you're on a Shine at Sea experience. So it's really quite an exclusive.
Is it hard to strike a balance between making sure people on board, agents on board, can experiencing the cruise in an authentic way?
Absolutely.
But also making sure they're coming away with the insights that they can then use to educate their clients?
Yeah, definitely. And then some of that comes down to the individual, right? Because you take a group of 40 travel agents on board, and they all have slightly different needs and wants from their own holiday. So you're trying to do a bit of a one size fits all. So we allow flexibility within what we're doing. We allow some self-paced learning, and then we allow some more kind of classroom interactive style sessions. We do our best to make sure we've got opportunities to experience as much of the ship as possible, and the ones we've done previously have all been over 7 nights, so that probably allows more of that. But we also appreciate not all agents can take 7 days out of their stores and offices. So this year we've just launched our program, which will have 3 cruises, so 3 different ships, 3 different itineraries, and a different range of duration, so hopefully allowing more people to come on board, whether that's just for a slightly shorter amount of time, but still absolutely maximising whether that's short experiences and time and destination versus, enjoying our fascinating and amazing food experiences, the entertainment, etc. So really trying to cover everything. So yeah, if you want it to be completely relaxing and a holiday, I wouldn't say it's that. But if you want to walk away knowing everything you can about a P&O Cruises holiday, then Shine at Sea is amazing for that. And we get really, really good feedback. And yeah, I guess, the team did a brilliant job in pulling that all together, as did the crew. So yeah, we're really proud of that experience that we can offer. Yeah. And I guess going back to the point we were saying around travel agents, they can sell that experience and a website can't. The more they've experienced it themselves and the more they really understand what that means from a guest point of view, the more they can make sure that they're selling the right experience to their customers.
Well, I guess as well as the education side of things, it's also about building loyalty with travel agents and ensuring that once a travel agent sells a P&O Cruises holiday, they have the confidence and the knowledge to do it again. But a big part of that is the rewards you offer, and keep ensuring that incentive campaigns are really cutting edge and are generating excitement and are generating that motivation. Is that something that you guys continually look at? Because I know from conversations we've had with travel agents in the past, they can very quickly tell when a cruise line's incentive program starts going a bit stale, and a bit same old. I mean, is that a consideration or a concern for you guys?
Yeah, definitely. So Shine Rewards Club is 8 years old this year, I think it is. And we constantly look at innovation within that. So I think it's really good that it's got gamification. I know it's simple, but just being able to spin a wheel and kind of not knowing exactly how many points you get. And I can assure you it's completely at random. So while sometimes that comes with frustration, people might have done a slightly higher end booking and got 10 points. It is the gamification. I think that brings an element of surprise and, interest to, I've made my P&O Cruises booking. I can go on and spin the wheel and not knowing exactly what you're going to get. And then we hear some really great stories throughout the trade, and particularly my regional team who will come to me and say, well, we've got someone who we've been talking to and they've saved up all of their points for the year and they've done all of their Christmas shopping with it, their food shop, bought everything they can for the kids. And that's what it means to us, is knowing how people are using Shine Rewards to really enhance what they're doing within their agencies and their own personal lives. That's lovely to hear. We went into January and thought, right, how are we going to, we know it's a busy time in January, so how can we make sure agents stay motivated, they're going to Shine Rewards Club, they're wanting to learn and engage with us. So we had some random on-the-spot prizes within the wheel, so you could spin, agents were spinning and winning anything between 100 and 500 points every day. So some kind of enhanced prizes as well, when we know it's really busy, and just our way of saying thank you for.
So it's engaging on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely. Some people are, we've had campaigns for, are you a saver or a spender? Some people save up all of their Shine points. Some people, every time they get them, they're spending them and getting their vouchers. So yeah, there's lots of ways people tailor it and use it for their own personal preferences, really.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, Ruth, you've been so generous with your time. I've had 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
Given the amount of time you spent at Carnival and the impact that you've made at that company, thinking back to yourself in that first day of the job when you were doing your spelling test.
I don't know how I got the job, really. Still have to phonetically say Caribbean in order to spell it.
I wanted to know, what advice would you give your former self, knowing what you know now?
What I think it's continue to be inquisitive, ask questions. I can be that annoying person when a meeting's going to finish and anyone got any questions, and quite often I put my hand up. Everyone else is probably like, come on, I'm that person. Yeah, sorry. Everyone's like, right, let's go. And I do think ask inquisitive questions, make sure you can walk out of any meeting, any time you're spending time with new people, and feel like you've learnt something, and make sure that you've got that opportunity to do that. So yeah, that would be me, and continuing to don't be afraid to put your hand up, and there's no such thing as a silly question, right?
That's a great answer. Well, before we end, though, anyone who tuned into our last Cruise Corner episode with SJ from Virgin Voyages will know that we've introduced a new sort of quite slightly fun, a bit quirky segment at the end of these interviews. So Ruth, if you'll oblige, I'm going to invite you to pick a question out of this
disco ball.
I think it's a disco ball. We found it today under my desk, to be honest.
Where did you find it?
So I'm going to ask you to pick a question.
Yeah, I'm nervous about this. Go on.
I don't need to be nervous.
All right.
Read it out and then do your best to provide us an answer.
Let's have a look. What does your dream cruise look like?
Oh, that's an easy one.
Oh, this is going to sound...
There are some harder ones in there. I think you got lucky.
Did I? This is perfect as well, because I've literally just come back from it. So I took 25 friends and family on Havila for Christmas and New Year in the Caribbean. So you can imagine that ease of travel in terms of our charter flight experience, going to the Caribbean, 9 islands in 2 weeks, 2 overnights, and my favourite 25 people in terms of friends, family, mum and dad, sister, my best friend, her parents. So a real multi-generational holiday. And I think the youngest person was 4 and the oldest person was 77, and we all just had the best time and the most fabulous time. So
fantastic. Where did you go?
Yeah, to the Caribbean. So we flew into Barbados. Don't make me say all the 9 islands because I probably couldn't remember them all, but lots of islands: Antigua, St. Martin, Martinique. So yeah, loads of different Caribbean.
And any of that group, was it the first cruise for them?
Yeah, a few people had done it for the first time. Yeah, I mean, it was a bit stressful. Definitely, yeah, they didn't have a choice. It was a bit stressful in the build up, because I'm sure anyone who works in travel can relate that if you're booking a holiday on behalf of your family, they think you know everything. And I hadn't personally been on a Caribbean cruise before, but they're like, well, where do we get the taxi from, and where should we and I'm thinking, I've never been here either. Like, I've got you to the ship, that's it now. So yeah, little bit of stress, but it was all in good fun, and had a great time.
Brilliant. Well, we'll end it there, Ruth. Thank you so much for your time. Anyone who's enjoyed this interview and this ongoing series, please feel free to like, subscribe, leave us a review on Spotify. We love to know what you think of what we're doing. And then make sure to tune into the next one. Thank you so much.